my fetal heart rate was unstable and I had massive bleeding, and I fainted from the pain in the delivery room. Lucy took a call to stop treatment, turned and left, saying, "Appendicitis is delicate, only I can sign, you endure a bit." Watching his disappearing back, I no longer caused trouble. After the child was born, in the father's column I wrote deceased. The smell of the antiseptic is like a sharp ice spike piercing into my nostrils, and all my internal organs churn. I lie on the cold delivery bed, and every contraction beneath me feels like a brutal dismemberment. The pain explodes from the abdomen, spreading to the limbs and bones, tearing my consciousness into shreds. Sweat soaks my hair, sticking sticky to my forehead and cheeks. My vision is blurred by tears and sweat. Only the operation lights remain, a pale halo like a cold sun. Massive postpartum hemorrhage, placental abruption, the fetal heart rate dropping to 80. What about the family? Sign quickly, a cesarean section must be performed. Immediately, the doctor's voice was anxious and sharp, echoing in my ears like an alarm. I summoned all my strength to turn my head, seeking the familiar figure at the door of the delivery room. Luoze, my husband, the man who at our wedding promised to always put me first. He was gripping his phone tightly, brow furrowed. My lips were dry and splitting, unable to form a complete sound, only a fractured plea squeezed from my throat. "Luz, save the child." He didn't look at me, all his attention was fixed on that small screen on that side. His face was paler than the surgical lights, and I had never seen such panic on him before. Not for me, not for us, the baby that was about to be born. Next moment, his phone rang abruptly like a sharp knife slicing through the stagnant air. She almost answered immediately, her voice carrying unprecedented urgency and tenderness. "Soft, what's wrong? Don't cry, say it slowly." Soft, the name Wenyi stabbed into my heart like a poisoned needle, piercing deep into the heart that was numb from the searing pain. I saw her turn on her side, trying to lower her voice, but outside the delivery room, where only the ticking of a clock and my panting remained in this silence, every word was clearly brutal. "Appendicitis requires surgery. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." Softly, "What did the doctor say?" "A relative must sign." "Don't be afraid, I'll come over right away." "You're alone in the hospital." I'm uneasy. My world collapsed completely at that moment. The bleeding wasn't just from my body, it was also from the marriage I had run for 5 years, the love I had devoted my youth to believing in. I watched the plea in Luze's eyes gradually cool, turning into an unbelievable farce. The doctor was still shouting, "Mr. Lu, your wife and child are now in grave danger. Every second may count." Luzman turned around abruptly and finally glanced at me. His eyes were complex, filled with guilt, agitation, but more than anything a decisive impatience. He strode quickly to my side, holding my cold hand. "The wedding ring I designed still on it now like a cold shackle." "Uncle," he spoke hoarse, rubbing his eyes, "acute appendicitis requiring immediate surgery. The doctor said it was dangerous. He is alone in City A. Only I can go to sign. You endure for now. I'll finish up here and be right back very soon." Enduring, this word slapped me hard in the face like a loud, resounding slap. I was in so much pain I nearly fainted. Our child is hanging by a thread in the womb, yet he tells me to endure for the sake of another woman's appendix. I watched as she suddenly stopped hurting. A bone-deep chill spread from the heart, instantly sealing off all pain and emotion. I even had the mind to think that the danger level of acute appendicitis in her heart was equivalent to, or even surpassed, obstetric hemorrhage and fetal distress. He let go of my hand, turned around, and the back view I once believed I could rely on as a doctor, now like a drawn sword unsheathed, cleanly and decisively severed all our feelings. It disappeared. At the end of the corridor, taking away my last shred of hope, the delivery room was deathly silent. The obstetric nurse leaned in carefully, her voice full of sympathy. Are you all right?" I did not answer. "The family has gone. What should we do now? If we drag this out any longer, the child will be mine to pull." My voice was so calm it didn't resemble me at all, as if it came from another dimension. The nurse stared, then reacted, and immediately handed me the surgical consent form and a pen. My hands trembled badly, not from fear, but from a physiological disassociation. I summoned the last bit of strength and, in the family's signing column, wrote my name stroke by stroke. The moment the love letter was signed, I felt something slipping away with the departing blood, forever leaving me. I don't know how long passed, but in the midst of chaos and excruciating pain I heard a faint yet clear baby's cry, like a ray of dawn splitting my dark world. My child survived, and the effects of the anesthesia gradually faded. I woke on the hospital bed, and if I turned my head, I could see the small wrinkled life in the incubator. My son's head nurse walked in, holding a form, speaking in a gentle tone. Miss Cheen, we need to register the birth certificate for the child, for the father's name. I looked out the window at the grey sky and fell silent for a long time as I recalled Lou Zeddy's figure. The things he said replayed in my mind like a silent film, finally freezing at the moment he turned to leave. My lips moved softly, forming several distinct words. Dead on arrival. The head nurse was stunned, thinking she had heard wrong. I turned my head to look at him and repeated word by word. The father of the child had died by the time I was on the operating table, so please fill in one word in that column. When Luoza came back, it was the afternoon of the next day. He pushed open the door of the VIP ward wearing yesterday's expensive tailored suit, now crumpled and stained with a hospital's peculiar scent faintly mixed with the scent of another perfume for women. He held a fruit basket and a bouquet of bright carnations, his face showing just the right amount of weariness and guilt. If this picture had appeared before yesterday, it might have softened my heart, but now I looked at him, and my inner calm was like an ancient well. Completely still. Uncle, you're awake. How's your body? The doctor said the surgery was successful, that you and the child are safe, and I'm relieved. He walked over, placing the flowers into the bed's vase, then tried to take my hand. Instinctively, I pulled my hand back under the blanket. His hand froze in midair, and the expression on his face was a little hard to maintain. Uncle, I know you're still angry. What happened yesterday was my fault, but please comfort her. At that moment the situation really was urgent. I was alone and I couldn't not help her. I promise it won't happen again. He apologized smoothly, made his promises smoothly, just like countless times in the past when he'd skip out for work or stay out late for social events. He thought this time would be the same as before. If he lowered his posture, I would, like a sensible wife, silently swallow all the grievances and then smile and say, "It's okay, I understand." I did not look at his eyes resting on our small son in the incubator. He was asleep, his tiny chest rising and falling, fragile yet stubborn. He is my child, the one I fought hard to give birth to. Lu Ziyi, I finally spoke, my voice hoarse from weakness but my tone unusually clear. Let's get a divorce. The guilt on his face froze instantly, replaced by astonishment and a hint of offended anger. What love letter are you talking about? Do you know what you're saying? We just had a child, and now you tell me to divorce you. I pulled out something I had prepared long ago from under the pillow and handed it to him. A printed divorce agreement, with a bank card and nearly 3 months of financial statements beside it. While he was having that 2-hour perilous operation to remove his appendix, I lay on the hospital bed and used my phone to contact my lawyer friend, remotely transferring half of the liquid assets from our marital accounts to my premarital account. Lu Zeddy's pupils suddenly constricted. He looked at the flow record with disbelief, then raised his head to look at me, his gaze filled with scrutiny and unfamiliarity. When did you start calculating all this, while you chose to let your wife and biological son endure on the life and death line? I calmly replied that I was merely preserving what I and my son deserve. Take a look at the agreement. I only want the child and this house, the company shares, and the rest of the assets all to you. If you agree, we can sign today. Lu Zeddy's face shifted from pale to green to red. He seemed to be meeting me for the first time. That sense of familiarity and control vanished entirely, replaced by an out-of-control anger. She snatched the agreement and slammed it to the ground with a shrill sound. Uncle Cheen, don't make trouble, he roared, suppressing his fury. Who do you think you are? A full-time housewife who has been out of society for 5 years, spinning around the kitchen every day. Do you understand what assets are? Do you know what shares are? If you leave me, how will you live with the child? You can't even support yourself. His words were like a poisoned blade, each line precisely stabbing at my former soft spots. Yes, for him I gave up my beloved jewelry design career, hid away all my sharpness and talent, and willingly served him, washing dishes and cooking, being the gentle, quiet woman behind him. I thought that was love. Now I know it was only his pampered cage for me. I watched her furious appearance and suddenly found it somewhat pathetic. Lucy, I said softly but with unwavering resolve, my patience, like your fatherly love, expired at the moment you turned away from the delivery room. I no longer pay attention to her roar. I pressed the call bell at the head of the bed and a nurse quickly came in. Hello, please ask this gentleman to leave. I pointed at Lucy to the nurse and said he was disturbing my rest here. The nurse looked at the furious Lucy, then at my pale yet resolute face, nodded and formally said to Lucy, sir, the parturient needs to rest. Please leave. Lucy's chest rose and fell violently. She glared at me as if she wanted to burn 2 holes in me. In the end he sneered, straightened his wrinkled suit and regained some of his former elite demeanor. Okay Uncle Chin, you're something. He gritted his teeth and said, I'll give you time to calm down when you're out of money and at your wit's end and come back to me for help. It won't be so easy then. After saying that, he turned and left without looking back, the loud slam of the door reverberating through the entire ward. I watched the direction in which he disappeared, neither crying nor making a scene. I only felt that these 5 years were like a long and ridiculous dream, and now the dream had ended. I picked up my phone and sent a message to my lawyer friend. He didn't agree to an amicable divorce and planned to proceed with litigation. The friend replied quickly, don't worry, he had an affair during the marriage, and maliciously abandoned you during your delivery. The evidence is solid, we'll win. I looked at that message and slowly surfaced the first smile I'd had in days. Though weak, it felt incredibly relaxed. Lucy, you're wrong. It's not that I can't live without you, it's that your world cannot have me in it, and from now on my world will no longer need you. Lucy thought I was just throwing a tantrum, like a cat temporarily neglected by its owner. It would lick its wounds and obediently return to its owner's feet. He was certain that within 3 days I would cry and call her, begging her to forgive me. After all, a woman with a newborn and no 5-year work experience couldn't have much backbone. She gave me a week to calm down. Within that week he didn't call, send a message, or even come to the hospital to see the baby. He waited for my submission through this cold violence, yet what he got was my complete disappearance. On the day of discharge, I didn't inform anyone. I had already arranged a high-end confinement center and used that transferred money to book the best package for me and the baby. Then I sat in the confinement center's car and quietly left the hospital. The first thing I did in the car was unplug the sound card from my phone, and without hesitation I snapped it in half and tossed it into a roadside trash can. Next, I logged out of all the social accounts Lucy knew, Weibo, which had chronicled our 5 years of sweetness, and the moments where he only posted about the dishes he loved. I erased them one by one. All the past, good and bad, dissolved into specks of dust in the data world at my fingertips. My lawyer simultaneously mailed 3 copies of the divorce agreement and formal notices to Lucy's company, Lucy's parents' home, and Lucy's own email in black and white with clear terms. Attached were photos of him with Wenyiru, as well as his call records during my delivery and the timestamps of leaving the hospital. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a declaration to my heart. The destination wasn't a friend's house or my maternal home, but a little apartment I bought with the first design bonus I earned before our marriage. The apartment wasn't large, but it had a studio with a floor-to-ceiling window, a place Lucy had never set foot in. This was a realm belonging only to my Chin Shu, my last retreat I had kept for myself when I carried my sleeping son into this apartment, which had a bit of dust but remained warm. I knew I had come home. Lucy's panic began a week later. He calculated the timing. Convinced that my cooling-off period should be over, he bravely dialed my number, ready to listen to my crying and confession, and then generously forgive me. But the call delivered a cold system prompt. The number you have dialed is not in service. He froze, dialed a few more times, and the result remained the same. A sense of foreboding seized her. She started sending WeChat messages. The familiar avatar was still there, but the message sent with only a cold red exclamation mark. You have been removed as a friend by the other party. Lucy's face instantly sank. She began calling all of our mutual friends, his tone shifting from casual at first to anxious and unsettled. Hey Larawang, is Chinshu with you? No. What's up? Have you seen Chinshu? He left the hospital with the child, but I don't see him. Sister-in-law isn't with you. After one call after another, everyone answered that they didn't know. He felt like a planet accustomed to satellites forever in fixed orbit. Suddenly one day, he looked up and found the satellite he believed would always belong to him had disappeared into the vast universe, leaving no trace. He felt true panic for the first time, a fear not of love but of his own sense of control being overturned. He drove back to our former home, the place he thought I would obediently return to, only to be met with an empty room. My clothes, skincare products, and even my favorite mug were all gone. In the wardrobe only row after row of his expensive suits and ties remained. Looking especially lonely at that moment, his mother called, her voice sharp and angry. "Luz, what exactly did you do out there? Lawyer letters have been sent to the house. Are you divorcing the lover? Are you crazy? The child was just born." Luz held the phone, listening to his mother's roar, his mind blank. He finally realized that Chinshu wasn't playing a game of pursuit and evasion with him. It wasn't a threat, but a verdict. That night, for the first time he couldn't sleep. He sat in the empty living room, looking at our huge wedding photo on the wall. In the photo, I was smiling softly and ardently, with eyes full of him, and at this moment, that smile seemed like a massive irony. He began to replay everything, trying to figure out where I might have gone. My parents were far away back home and in poor health. I wouldn't bother them. I had asked about my friends, and he suddenly remembered that I had once mentioned having a small house of my own before marriage, but he had never paid attention and didn't even know the address. For her, everything about me should revolve around him. My past was of no consequence. He felt like a beast trapped in a cage. For the first time he realized that the wife who appeared soft and compliant actually had a completely independent world he had never touched, and he was entirely and brutally expelled. The 4 words "not found" became an enduring nightmare for a long time to come. 6 months have passed like sand, slipping through my fingers, and the mirror reflects a stranger. I am no longer Mrs. Liu in home clothes, with hair carrying the scent of oil and smoke. I wear a neat pair of dark grey work pants, and my long hair is tied high with a sandalwood hairpin, exposing a smooth, full forehead and a sharp, clean jawline. My eyes have shed the gentleness and dependence of the past. They feel like they have been washed by icy springs, settling into focus, calmness, and even a hint of aloof strength. During these 6 months, I shed the excess weight from pregnancy and also shed the heavy mental shackles that marriage had placed on me. The studio I had sealed away for 5 years is now utterly refreshed. I spent half a month thoroughly cleaning it, throwing away all expired pigments and oxidized metal materials, and replacing them with the most advanced German laser welding torch polisher, and a 3D modeling setup. Various professional tools are neatly arranged on a dark walnut long table. Tweezers, files, and hammers gleam under the shadowless lights with a cold yet captivating metallic luster, like a row of soldiers awaiting inspection. The walls are plastered with densely packed designs, from the ornate Baroque scrollwork to minimalist geometric lines. It was how I had been oppressed for 5 years, and now I have finally broken free, letting my inspiration and talent burst forth. I named my independent design brand Anne, which in Latin means soul. I hope every one of my works can have its own soul, telling a unique story, no longer to please anyone, no longer to flatter anyone, only shining for its own existence. A faint buzz of electricity sounds, and I put on professional protective goggles, hold a precise laser welder, and with breath held and concentration focused, perform the final setting for a Pyribacean crystal about the size of a pigeon egg. This gemstone is renowned for its neon-like blue-green luster, cultured, rare, and expensive. The color of the gem radiates captivating light at high temperatures. Tiny sparks spray from my fingertips like a miniature silent stellar explosion, with a faint scent of burning metal filling the air. This scent was once the most familiar companion of my entire youth. Back then I could stay in the studio all day, forget time, forget hunger, only to turn a concept in my mind into reality. My son Anan sleeps nearby in a custom crib not far away. He is very good and seems born to adapt to the subtle sounds of the studio, the hum of the welder, the sizzle of the polisher, and the clinking of hammers on metal, all becoming his lullaby. I often feel that he is the treasure I found again, the greatest courage of my rebirth. Whenever I feel tired or haunted by the shadows of the past, Just looking at his sleeping face and feeling his steady breath instantly calms all the turmoil inside me. My first official order came from a young woman I saw casually posting a sketch of my work on social media. She is about to get married, has a tight budget, but is eager for me to design a truly unique wedding ring for her. On a video call, she shyly told me that she and her fiancé have been in a long-distance relationship for 7 years, from university to work, one in the southern region and one in the northern frontier. Countless thick train tickets and countless sleepless video calls have carried them to this day. After hearing her story, I was deeply moved. In her tale, I saw the purest and most resilient form of love. I rejected the mainstream large diamond designs that dominate the market because they didn't fit their story. I chose 2 extremely small but brilliantly fire-cut fancy-shaped diamonds, one to represent him, one to represent her. They lean on each other, tightly hugging the design of the ring setting. I discarded the traditional circular band and used flexible platinum to outline 2 intertwined railway track lines. They extend from different directions, wrap around and coil together, finally lifting the 2 diamonds steadily to the focal point where they converge. I named this ring Guard. He guards not only love but also the long years that spanned mountains and seas. When the girl cried with joy upon receiving the ring in the video, I felt a long-awaited immense satisfaction that comes from creation. He posted a photo of the ring along with his story on social media and tagged my newly registered Annie Studio account. To my surprise, this small design unexpectedly stirred quite a stir in some niche design circles. Oh my goodness, this design is so spiritual and alive, telling the story of a long-distance relationship so beautifully. Completely unlike the repetitive looks you see on the market, making the setting resemble railway tracks is brilliant. This is truly something that comes to you for a reason. Being able to weave the story into the design and endow the jewelry with emotion is the essence of a designer's purpose, not just a merchant who piles on carats. Slowly I began to receive scattered orders, some to commemorate a deceased pet, some to celebrate a personal truth, and some to transform an heirloom grandmother Shinto modern jewelry. I never chase quantity. For every order I have at least 2 in-depth conversations with the client to listen to their stories, whether mundane or winding, and then I condense those intangible, precious emotions into eternal stars that touch the fingertips. My life became simple, orderly, and fulfilling. During the day I immerse myself in design and creation. Metal, gemstones, and flame are my most faithful companions. When Annan is awake, I hold him in my arms or place him on my lap, letting him look at those glittering stones and telling him which corners of the earth these stones come from. At night, after he falls asleep, I sketch under a warm yellow desk lamp, inspiration like a bird that has broken free from a cage, freely soaring in my mind and landing on the pen tip. I hardly think of Lu Ziyi. Or rather, I deliberately expelled him from my world. Occasionally, in the quiet of the deep night, the pains of betrayal still emerge from the corners of memory like ghosts, but I immediately pick up my tools and throw myself into work. The sound of striking metal is focused and rhythmic, able to soothe every ripple and crease in my heart. I have built a solid fortress for myself and Annan through my work, and in this fortress I am the queen, and I call the shots. One day I was polishing a newly formed piece. The phone rang. It was a local number I didn't recognize. I thought it was a delivery, so I answered and held the speaker to the side. Hello. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Then a voice that was slightly aged but very gentle spoke. May I ask if this is Miss Chin, the love letter? The voice sounded familiar. I paused my work, picked up the phone again. It is me. Who are you? Oh my, it really is you. Your voice still sounds like when we were in school. The old man on the line laughed. I am Master Lee from Lee Ji Silver Workshop. I don't know if you still remember me. You used to come to this old man's place all the time during university, buying materials, asking questions here and there. Master Lee, my memory instantly went back many years. Of course I remember that you were an exceptionally skilled old silversmith, who ran a modest silver shop in the old downtown of City A. Yet it was a sacred place in the hearts of students at our design academy. He possessed many traditional techniques that were almost lost to history. One of my most complex craft-inspired designs during my graduation project was learned there after a full week of grinding. Master Lee, of course I remember you. I'm a little excited and a bit surprised. How's your health? I've been thinking recently about bringing my child to visit you. Well, I'm still sturdy with these old bones." Master Lee exchanged a few pleasantries, then his tone suddenly became solemn. "It's like this, Miss Chin. I'm calling you today for a matter. An extremely important client accidentally saw a photo of the ring you designed, the one that guards, and he admires it very much and wants you to customize a piece for him. The specifications are quite high. I wonder if you still take private orders now." My heart rate quickened slightly. Master Lee has a high reputation in the industry and is always low-key. Being personally called by him and referred to as an important client is no ordinary matter. For me, a studio just starting out, and not even having established a formal website yet, this is undoubtedly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I took a deep breath and clenched the cold, half-polished silver ingot in my hand. "Of course I'm ready," I answer in as steady a voice as I can manage, staying ready at any moment. "Please pass my contact information to him." After hanging up, I look out the window as the sunlight streams through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, making the dust in the studio glitter like countless dancing sprites. I know my new chapter in life truly begins at this moment, and this time the person wielding the pen is the me I've arranged to be. That afternoon I had already cleaned the studio to a spotless finish an hour early. The tools on the workbench were arranged with meticulous care according to size and function, design drafts catalogued and stored in folders, and even the air filled with the soft scent of white tea and ginger from an aroma diffuser, both refreshing and serene. I changed out of the metal powder-stained workwear into a simple pale silk shirt and a pair of drape-wide khaki wide-leg pants. My long hair was loosely pulled back and secured with a sandalwood hairpin, looking professional and capable. Without becoming overbearing or unapproachable, Anan seemed to sense my seriousness, taking a particularly sweet nap during the nap, chest rising gently like a quiet little cat. To be honest, I was a bit nervous. Since graduation, all my social circles had revolved around Lu Ziyi. I had grown accustomed to the identity of Mrs. Lu, to smiling and performing at various occasions as a perfect foil, but today I was stepping in as designer Qin Shu, greeting a client who might determine the direction of my career. A completely new independent battleground for me. The doorbell rang precisely at 3 o'clock as agreed, neither early nor late. I took a deep breath and walked to the door. Standing outside was a young man who surprised me a little. He looked about Lu Ziyi's age, a bit over 30, but his temperament was completely different. Lu Ziyi's edge was sharp like a drawn sword, always emanating elite sharpness and a craving for control. The man in front of me, however, resembled a calm and refined ancient jade. Quiet and restrained, yet with a strong natural aura. He wore a deep grey cashmere turtleneck of excellent texture and a tailored black pair of trousers. His posture was tall and slender, his features deep and handsome. Especially striking were his eyes, black as a midnight deep pool, bearing a calm, seasoned air of contemplation yet without any sense of intimidation. He wasn't carrying a briefcase, he casually draped a black coat over his arm. This didn't look like a businessman come to negotiate. He seemed more like a scholar or artist visiting a museum exhibition. "Miss Qin." "Hello," she nodded slightly, her voice deep and pleasant like the overtones of a cello. "I am Xie Jingxi, here to visit boldly through Master Li's introduction, hoping I am not disturbing you." The name Xie Jingxi flickered like a faint arc of electricity in my mind. I have seen in some top-tier art investment magazines that he is the sole heir of the domestic top financial clan, the Xie family, yet he is extremely low-key, rarely appearing in financial pages, and in the art appraisal and investment circles he is nearly legendary. It is said that his discerning eyes are terrifying. Any artwork he handles, whether classical paintings or contemporary installations, has all subsequently fetched astonishingly high prices at auction. I could never have imagined that the important guest Mr. Li spoke of would be him. "Hello, Mr. Shi. Please come in." I quickly restrain the surprise in my heart, turn to the side to let him in, and try to make my movements appear calm and composed. He steps into the studio and his gaze does not linger on me for long. Instead, with a professional scrutinizing attitude, he sweeps slowly across the entire space. His eyes do not rest on the expensive equipment, nor do they glance at the sparkling gems, but fall on the rough draft of the design I drew on the wall to protect, which is now somewhat frayed at the edges. Impressive, he stood in front of the draft and whispered that these two characters were not mere polite flattery but heartfelt admiration. "You flatter me." I poured her a glass of warm water and placed it on the small round table for guests. She did not, as some commercial clients I have dealt with before, sit down right away and cut to the chase about price, materials, and timeline. He remained standing before the draft, extending his long fingers, but not touching, only vaguely pointing to an extremely small detail on the manuscript marked by me with a 2-0 pencil, and asked about the totem on the inner wall of the ring. "Have you used filigree inlaid memory?" I was startled. Filigree inlay is one of the 8 exquisite crafts of ancient Beijing court, an extremely intricate technique that requires drawing gold and silver into thread-like filaments, then welding and stacking, hence the term fine gold craftsmanship, and it is now nearly extinct. I simply favored it. So within the inner wall of the protective ring I made a tiny symbol of protection, a concentric knot totem, using ultra-fine gold threads. That detail is so small that even the client would need a magnifying glass to see it clearly. It was a small, little-known commitment I had kept for myself, and he could tell at a glance. Yes, I nodded. The tension in my heart was replaced by the excitement of facing a worthy opponent. I had only made a tiny attempt. This was more than just an attempt. Xie Jinxi turned around and finally looked at me directly. His gaze was clear and focused, as if he could see through my scheming and directly into my heart. "Miss Qin, 99% of the jewelry on the market is nothing more than expensive goods. They boast of their value with carats, clarity, and color, yet they have no soul. But your work has soul. The word soul itself is like a precise, powerful warm current that instantly strikes at my heart's softest and most proud place. For 5 years, Lu Ziyi only cared whether the food I cooked pleased him, only cared whether the clothes I wore could make him look good in social situations. He never truly cared about my designs, my talents, my soul. To him, that was just a small hobby before marriage, not worth mentioning in the face of the realities of married life. "Thank you for the 2 words, I sincerely say." My eyes actually felt a little warm. Xie Jinxi seemed to sense my lapse. He smiled slightly, and that smile was like a spring breeze brushing the face, dissolving the natural aloofness that clung to him. "I've come this time to ask you to craft a gift for my mother's 70th birthday. I don't know what style Mrs. Xie likes or if there is any gem she particularly favors." I quickly steadied my emotions and slipped into work mode. My mother has lived through so much in her life. He did not answer my question directly, but began to tell his story gradually, from the war-torn era to the wave of reform and opening up to today's prosperity. His life itself is a heavy history, so I hope this piece can bear the time of her entire life. He looked at me, his eyes full of solemn responsibility and trust. "How to design it specifically, what materials to use, I left entirely to you. There is no budget ceiling. I have only one requirement. Let this work match the unique years she has lived through." This is a highly challenging and highly tempting proposition. It gives designers unlimited creative freedom and also sets the highest emotional demands. I could almost feel every sleeping creative cell in my body being thoroughly ignited at this moment. "Mr. Xie," I looked at him and said earnestly, "a soul cannot be priced. I am honored to accept your commission." The admiration in his eyes grew even stronger. We did not discuss any commercial terms. Instead, like 2 longtime friends sitting at a small round table, we talked about jewelry craftsmanship from different eras, from ancient Egyptian faience to Renaissance cloisonne enamels, to the geometric lines of Art Deco. He is learned, insightful, and conversing with him was a double pleasure, intellectually and spiritually, until an unslept and a faint cry interrupted our conversation. I smiled apologetically at her and said, "Sorry, the baby woke up. It's okay." He stood up, his gaze turning gently toward the baby's crib, a look free of irritation at being disturbed, only pure gentleness. "It seems my visit time was too long, Miss Qin. I look forward to your work." I accompanied Anan to the door, and he suddenly turned back and asked, "Is Annie your brand name?" "Yes, a very good name." He looked at me with a gaze that seemed to say, "I understand." Then he turned and left. I closed the door, leaned against the doorframe and breathed a long sigh. My heart was still beating violently and uncontrollably, half due to nervousness, half due to a long-lost, profoundly understood and completely affirmed immense excitement. The world represented by Lu Ziyi, a world that measures everything by money and status, was moving away from me, and a brand new world about the soul, about creation, about respect, was slowly opening its curtain to me. Luz Eddy's life after I completely disappeared inevitably fell into a slow and sustained collapse. When Iru isn't me, he would call him crying while Luzi was in the middle of a crucial multinational video conference, complaining about the male lead Taija. He would, after finishing a day of high-intensity work with his exhausted body, point at a table full of exquisite yet cold takeout and complain that the dishes cooked by the housemaid didn't sit well with him. She would, without changing her expression, swipe her credit card to the limit and buy a pile of useless luxury goods, yet she couldn't remember where his tablets of stomach medicine were kept. At first, Luzi could still immerse himself in the feeling of being needed and depended upon, and he treated this chaos as a spark of life, believing that this was the proof of a man's value. But as time passed, the endless emotional demands and the total loss of daily details made her feel a genuine fatigue and irritability from the bottom of her heart. He thought more and more at night about the other half's empty bed, about me, about that always tidy and warm home. No matter how late he came back, there would always be a warm amber light on in the living room for him. He thought of the shirts and ties I ironed neatly by color and season. He thought of my smiling eyes and my gentle greeting of welcome when he returned home, with the food still warm. Those everyday things that he once took for granted or even found a little tiresome have now become an almost unattainable luxury. The more she yearned, the angrier she became. She could not accept that the woman who used to be as gentle as a cat in her world could really be heartless enough to evaporate completely from his world, leaving no trace. His pride and his natural need to control made him unable to tolerate such a total failure. Finally, he mobilized all his connections, hired the best private detective in City A, and presented him with a thick stack of materials, detailed addresses of my small apartment, all information about my Amy jewelry design brand, and even a few side profile photos of me walking in and downstairs. When he laid them before her, the panic in her heart completely transformed into twisted reluctance and jealousy. He thought I would wither like a vine that leaves the big tree, eventually drying up and crawling on the ground to beg for his pity. But instead, I became an independent young tree, not only surviving but also starting to sprout branches and leaves, gradually gaining my own territory. That afternoon I was in the studio drafting the first version of a time-based sketch for Xie Jingxi's mother's work. A violent, chaotic knock suddenly came from outside the door, rough and urgent, as if it were about to tear the door panel apart. I frowned. The studio's doorbell was visible. I walked to the door, and the face on the screen made my heart sink. It was Luzi. He wore an expensive Armani suit, but his hair was greasy and disheveled, and dark circles lay heavily under his eyes. The once bright gaze of ambition and spirit was now only sinister, and I didn't open the door. I spoke coldly through the intercom. "What are you here for, love letter? Open the door. I know you're inside. Open the door for me," he yelled outside, slamming his palms against the door, causing a few neighbors in the hallway to lean out of curiosity. I didn't want to make things too ugly or disturb the neighbors. I took a deep breath, locked the inner door of the studio, and only opened the outer security door. He charged in like a tornado mixed with wind and snow, his gaze sweeping the entire studio in a flash. When he saw the professional equipment, the wall full of design drafts, and an awakening from the baby bed, his look became incredibly complex: shock, anger, and a hint of abandoned fear that even he hadn't noticed. He hurried toward the baby bed, seemingly wanting to lift the child at all costs. I immediately stepped forward like a lioness protecting her cub, spreading my arms and blocking between her and the crib. My voice was cold, without a trace of warmth. "Luz, what are you planning to do? What am I planning to do?" He seemed to hear the most absurd joke in the world, pointing at Anan, and in a tone so righteous it was almost funny. He roared at me, "He is my son, Luz Eddy's son. Qin Shu, by what right do you deprive me of the right to see my child? I am his father." "Father." I watched his distorted face twisted by anger, uglified by jealousy, and suddenly I laughed. That smile had no warmth, only endless ridicule. I turned toward a drawer at the workbench, pulled it open, and from a pile of important documents I took out a sheet of paper carefully protected by a transparent plastic cover. I walked up to him, held that paper up before his eyes, so close it almost touched his nose. I spoke word by word, eyes wide open. You see clearly, this is Theof, my son Chin. And Lu Zi's gaze instinctively settled on the document, then followed the mother column down to the father column. When I had filled in the eye-catching black ink with a signature that I pressed hard enough to almost tear the paper, his whole body seemed struck by lightning and froze completely. His face turned deathly white in an instant, his lips trembled violently, his shaking finger pointed at the word, staring at me in disbelief, a snort in his throat but unable to utter a complete sentence. You, Mr. Lu. I slowly withdrew the birth certificate, treating it like a precious work of art, carefully, gently placing it back into the drawer, then locking it. When I lay on the delivery bed bleeding heavily, crying and begging you to save our child, my son's father had already died. He died the moment he chose to sign the appendicitis surgery consent for another woman. Died when she said those 4 words. You bear with it for now. I looked up unafraid, straight into her eyes that were bloodshot from extreme shock and humiliation, and continued to utter the cruelest words in the calmest tone. To heal you, you are nothing more than a stranger who provided the sperm. By Chinese law, an illegitimate child has no visitation rights without my consent, so put away your ridiculous claims of paternal authority. You do not deserve them. Every word I uttered was like a venomous ice blade, stabbing into his proud masculine pride with precision and ferocity. He trembled violently, his face turning from pale to a dark purplish hue. His once proud eloquence, his unassailable logic at the negotiation table, his irresistible charm in front of countless women, all became pale and weak before that glaring black mark, unable to withstand the strike. That was not a simple document, it was my verdict, a tombstone I erected for him with my own hands. Get out, I pointed at the door, and issued the final eviction order. Lu Zi seemed to be drained of all his bones and strength, staggered back 2 steps, and collided with the wall behind him. She looked at me for the first time, revealing genuine, unconcealed fear in her eyes. He may have just realized in that moment that I was not throwing a tantrum. I was not playing some seduction and pursuit game. I was truly sentencing him to death from my loins, my blood, and my soul. He did not say another word, nor did he glance at An. Again. He simply looked stunned, like a lost soul, turned around, opened the door, and walked out. I closed the door, slid slowly to the floor with my back against the cold door panel. I hugged my knees, burying my face deeply, my body still trembling slightly beyond control. This wasn't the joy of victory, just a settlement of pain that had arrived half a year late. I told myself, Qin Shu, don't look back. From now on in your world there will be no one like this person. The work designed for Xie Jinxi's mother consumed 3 whole months of my painstaking effort. This has long surpassed the scope of a commercial order. It feels more like a peak duel between me and my professional abilities, a ceremony of bidding farewell to my past self. I didn't rush to start sketching. Instead, I spent half a month reading through the grand life of Xie's mother with materials provided by Xie Jingxi. I looked at old photos of her as a nurse in a battlefield hospital when she was young, read about the middle-aged life when she and Mr. Xie started the Xie family group from scratch, and even listened to the audio recounting she recorded for a charitable foundation in her later years. I tried to capture the spiritual core of every important moment in her life, and finally chose a necklace as the carrier. The necklace's main body is forged from PT 950 platinum and 18K rose gold, braided into a soft yet resilient river of time through an extremely complex ancient weaving technique. Along this river, I carefully selected and set 7 gems of different sizes, shapes, and colors that best represent the stages of his life. The first gem is a warm, restrained jadeite nephrite buckle from Hotan, Xinjiang, symbolizing his carefree childhood in his hometown by the waterways of the Jiangnan region. The second gem is a red carnelian in the color of flames from Sichuan's Nanzhong, carved into a small pentagram representing his youth's revolutionary and life-saving red memory. The third gem is a royal blue sapphire cut into a perfect teardrop from Sri Lanka, crystal clear, symbolizing the stormy, mutually supportive love he shared with Mr. Xie. The fourth gem weighs 10 carats, a radiant radiance in radiant cut yellow diamond, representing the reform and opening up era when he and Mr. Xie founded the Xie family group and created a business empire, up to the 7th gem, a flawless white sea pearl from Nanyang with a diameter of 18 millimeters, smooth and full with an inner glow of splendor, symbolizing his present life full of descendants, established success, retirement, and a peaceful, wise old age. In order to perfectly fuse these 7 gemstones of markedly different materials and styles into the river of time, I almost used all of my top techniques, from nearly lost palace court gilding and inlay to the painstaking bead blasting process, and then to modern seamless integration and precise orbital alignment. When the necklace was finished and I gently placed it on the black silk tray, I watched him under the shadowless light flowing with warm, passionate, deep, resplendent, and harmonious brilliance, and I was deeply moved. When Xie Jinxi came to collect the work and saw the time at first glance, he fell silent for a very long time. He did not rush to touch or inspect the details the way ordinary clients do. He simply stood there quietly, his gaze moving from the first piece of Hatien jade to the last piece of Australian white pearl. In his eyes there was the awe of a connoisseur, the emotion of a son, and a deep, language-defying resonance. Miss Qin lifted her head, her gaze serious as she spoke from the heart. What you gave me was not merely a piece of jewelry, but a life with weight, warmth, and soul. Thank you. He insisted on paying a fee far beyond the market price we had initially agreed, 3 times as much, but I know what he gave me most precious was this cross-boundary understanding and respect. Later I learned that Xie Jinxi did not immediately entrust time to her mother. She made a decision I could never have imagined. In the name of our only studio, he sent this piece to participate in the most prestigious jewelry design competition in the world, the Geneva International Jewelry Design Competition, often regarded as the jewelry industry's Oscar. When I heard the news, the competition had already entered the final global judging phase. I was stunned. I never imagined that a young, just starting designer whose studio website wasn't even fully polished yet could have the chance to stand on such a world-class stage. I felt some trepidation and unease. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked Xie Jinxi on the phone. He let out a soft, confident chuckle on the other end. Because I believe your talent deserves to be seen by the whole world. If I told you in advance, you might have declined due to pressure, Uncle Qin. You must believe you are much more outstanding than you think. On the day the results were announced, I held Anan and kept vigil at the computer to watch the live stream. The Geneva Award ceremony venue exuded elegance and splendor with nobility and crowds everywhere, and every name rang in my ears. When the host for the Jewelry Design Gold Prize spoke the winning work's name in graceful magnetic French, I nearly thought I was hearing things. The winner was Qin Shu, a time designer from Emmy Studio. My mind blanked in that moment. Immense surprise and excitement surged like a dam break and overwhelmed me. I stared at the screen in a daze until Anan stirred restlessly in my arms, and I came back to myself. I held Anan close and kissed her soft cheeks. Again and again, tears uncontrollably streaming down in large unabashed tears. Within these tears were 5 years of grievances, 6 months of hardships, and more than anything, the joy and pride of breaking free from a cocoon into a butterfly. According to the procedure, I needed to deliver my acceptance speech via a video link. I quickly splashed cold water on my face, steadied my emotions, and sat in front of the camera. When my face appeared on the giant screen at the Geneva Award ceremony, I looked at the world-class designers and brand executives in the audience and began to speak slowly in French, which I had learned as a minor in college and which was somewhat rusty but still fluent. I said that for a true piece of jewelry, carats are only its weight, while the story is its soul. I hoped my work could be a series of poems of time, carrying memories, witnessing love, and signaling the future. I wanted everyone who wore it to feel in their own radiance the unique moments of brilliance in their lives. In the shot, I wore a simple white shirt with my minor studio behind me, my eyes bright, my speech confident, radiating a calm, humble, and incredibly powerful light. This news exploded in my name at an unforeseen speed simultaneously in the domestic finance and fashion circles. For the first time I was praised as a genius dark horse and as the light of the East, appearing in the public eye as a designer, and Lu Ziyi learned this news at a business banquet he valued highly, one he attended to salvage a downward trend. That night he was toasting with a glass of wine and joking with a potential major investor. The international business news was playing on the behind them. When the host reported the evening's Geneva competition, the screen showed my confident, composed face from the video link, and Lou Zeddy's smile stiffened at once. Beside him, a partner, a veteran in the industry, pointed at the screen with interest and said to him, "Mr. Lou, look at this Qinshu master, so remarkable, so talented and cosmopolitan at such a young age, and I hear she's a single mother raising a child alone to start a business, so inspiring." Another woman in a full Van Cleef & Arpels ensemble agreed, "Yes, I've seen the photo of that timepiece, it's an artwork. Women with such talent and backbone are precisely the role models for our new era." Lou Ze stood amid a chorus of praise for his ex-wife and felt that those words were like countless burning steel pins, stabbing hard into his heart and dignity. He watched the screen show that radiant, almost unfamiliar woman, and for the first time tasted the shame of being burned by his ex-wife's glare. He had once believed I was a canary kept in a cage by him, unable to survive without his feeding. Until this moment, he finally understood that what he had caged was not a canary, but a phoenix that should soar among the heavens, and he had opened the cage door with the stupidest and cruelest method, allowing himself to be reborn in the fire of betrayal and fly to a height he could no longer reach. The wine glass slipped from his trembling hand, crashing onto the smooth marble floor, shattering into pieces and producing a crisp, jarring sound, just as his pride, which had long since shattered into powder, was broken. It was not Lou Ze who felt the first panic at my rising fame, but Wen Yiru. His greatest reliance had been Lou Ze's fatigue and his vanity towards her. He enjoyed the material life that should have belonged to me as a victor's posture and was certain that the abandoned aging woman would never rise again. Yet reality gave him a resounding slap. When the name Qinshu began to be repeatedly associated with talents such as genius designers, independent women, and international awards, when Yiru's sense of crisis exploded, he began to realize that his place in Lou Ze's heart was not as solid as he thought. Lou Ze's gaze at him, which had once been full of infatuation, gradually became more scrutinizing and impatient, and so he began a clumsy and ridiculous imitation. He tucked away those flamboyant influencer style dresses and began to imitate the simple, elegant dressing style I used to favor. She no longer indulged in watching dramas or shopping, but picked up a few beginner books on jewelry appreciation, pretended to study them, and tried to play the role of a refined, high-value partner in front of Lou Ze. However, pretending to be refined would ultimately become a joke. The opportunity came quickly. In order to win back a potential client who had developed a subtle impression of him because of my award, Lou Ze organized a crucial client dinner and brought along the pandemic she who he believed had been nearly reformed. At the dinner, the client's wife happened to be a seasoned jewelry enthusiast. She saw the necklace around Wen Yi's neck that Lou Ze had just bought for him, and came over with great interest, laughing. "Miss Wen, this necklace is really beautiful. It's tanzanite, isn't it? This orange one is very rare." When Yiru obviously hadn't done her homework, she only knew the necklace was expensive, but she didn't recognize tanzanite at all. Her vanity flared up and she immediately raised her chin, acting coquettishly. "Madam Du, you have great taste, but this isn't tanzanite, this is a top-grade royal blue sapphire. A's had specifically had it photographed for me." The client's wife's smile froze instantly. Although tanzanite and sapphire have similar colors, to connoisseurs their value and rarity are worlds apart. When Irusov calling a deer a horse not only reveals her ignorance but also makes her appear cheaply unsuited, creating an extremely awkward moment, the client quietly exchanged a glance with the lady. The look carried both contempt for Wen Yiru and deep doubt about Lou Ze's taste. How precise could a man be in investing if he himself treats his female companion so carelessly? After that night, that crucial deal with Lou Zajwa that had to succeed was put on indefinite hold for the need to think it over again. When he got home, Lou Ze lost his temper with Wen Yiru like never before. "Do you even understand what tanzanite is, what a sapphire is? If you don't understand, don't talk nonsense. Do you know how much business we lost because of you?" The eye sockets behind Wen Yiru turned red, and she cried with grievance, "How would I know? I'm not the one who studies this." Didn't you used to say that a woman only needs to be beautiful, even if Qin Shu knows these things, so what, you still don't want her? The two characters' love letters are like a fuse that instantly ignites a long-suppressing explosive in Lu Ziyi's heart. He looks at the woman before him who only cries and shirks responsibility, all dressed in designer brands with flawless makeup, yet unable to hide the hollowness and shallowness beneath. For the first time, she clearly sees in him a cheap substitute. 5 words that float uncontrollably in his mind, and another image suddenly surfaces in his head. It was a few years ago at another important dinner. A client's wife accidentally spilled red wine on my dress. I wasn't flustered at all, only smiled and handed her a tissue, then conversed in fluent English with the wife, who also shared an interest in design, about Baroque jewelry styles and contemporary minimalist design philosophy. That night I not only earned him respect, but also unexpectedly helped seal a business deal between the client's wife and my friend's gallery. Back then I was confident, poised, graceful, the most effective partner in my career, and the brightest business card in my social circle, and now Wen Yiru, she is merely a beautiful shell that requires constant filling with money and effort. The vast disparity squeezes Lu Ziyi's throat with an invisible hand. He looks at Wen Yiru's tear-streaked face for the first time, and feels a deep, heartfelt weariness. He turns to the study, closes the door, and isolates Wen Yiru's cries outside. He leans exhaustedly on the chair and closes his eyes. It turns out that luxury is hard to sustain in the face of frugality. Someone used to fine things cannot endure a counterfeit for long. The business setbacks and the daily trivialities of life press down on Lu Ziyi like 2 mountains, leaving him gasping for air. He begins to suffer frequent insomnia, staying awake all night until dawn breaks. The silent late night becomes the best fertile ground for remorse to grow, and he starts uncontrollably recalling every moment he spent with me, the everyday as he once took for granted, even a little tiresome, now a luxury out of his reach. He remembers every time he had an important project report. I would accompany her. Staying up late wasn't merely serving tea. It was using my meticulous logic to help him sort through ideas and optimize the structure of his PowerPoint. My business instinct and aesthetics were once the team's openly secret weapon. He recalls he has an old stomach problem, cannot eat too spicy foods. No matter how late he returns home, I would leave him a bowl of warm millet kanji. That bowl not only warms his stomach but also consoles the weariness after a day of battles, and now what she faces is only greasy and spicy takeout brought by a plague. He recalls the moment when I looked at her, the starry sea in my eyes. There was admiration, infatuation, complete trust, and he personally extinguished that starry sea into a dead, desolate desert. Regret washes over him in wave after wave until he is completely submerged. He somehow opened the long-forgotten cabinet in the study, full of my things. He carefully pulled out a painting which was the birthday gift I gave him when we first got together. It was filled with his quick sketches, the focused him during meetings, the sweaty him playing basketball, the quiet him when reading. Beside each of his drawings, delicate handwriting described his mood at the time. Today I saw Luz playing basketball again. Under the sunlight, he is brighter than the sun. He pulled 2 all-nighters for a project and it made me feel so sad for him, secretly drawing him a picture, hoping he would forever shine for his dreams as he does now. He leafed through page after page of those deep affections he had forgotten, and at this moment they cut his heart like dull knives again and again. At the bottom of the painter, he uncovered a thick stack of design drafts, my college works, full of wild imagination and astonishing talent. He looked at those intricate and exquisite designs and for the first time truly realized what kind of brilliant future I had given up, and he willingly walked into the prison called family that he had built, while he calmly enjoyed my sacrifice, stamping my talent into the daily grind of life, yet despising me for growing ordinary and losing my luster. Overwhelming guilt and remorse made it hard for him to breathe. He went crazy, grabbing his phone and dialing that number he hadn't dialed in a long time, a number deeply familiar to him. The recorded tone that followed was the standard message saying the number was no longer in service. He refused to give up and began trying to search for my WeChat account, the one he had blocked and deleted. Naturally undetectable. Finally he remembered my email. the address I once used to receive design drafts and school notices, not sure if it was still in use. She trembled as she began to write an email to me. The first message was a confrontation disguised as a love letter. What do you really want? Even if I am at fault, you can't treat the child like this. The second message showed weakness. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have left you at such a time. Can you give me a chance to make amends? The third day. A plea, Uncle. I've been thinking about our past a lot lately. After so many years together, are we really going to take this step for the sake of the child? Can we start over? He writes every day like a drowning person grasping at the last lifeline, placing all his hope in that small, constantly blinking cursor. Yet all her sent emails vanish into the ocean, receiving no response at all, until one day he, as usual, wrote a long email filled with remorse and love. Click send, and what pops up on the screen is no longer a message saying sending succeeded, but a layer of cold black text from an automatic system reply, beside it a glaring red exclamation mark. The recipient has blocked you. That red exclamation mark, like a final cold judgment, utterly shatters all his unrealistic fantasies. He stared at that line of text and finally, unable to hold back, cried aloud in the empty study like a child after being utterly rejected. Luz's behavior grew paranoid and dangerous. He couldn't contact me through normal channels, so he started staking out near my studio. She was like a lingering specter, peering at my life from afar. She saw me walking with Anan in the small garden downstairs, and my face bore a truly serene smile that I had never shown in front of her. She saw Xie Jinxi drive to pick me up, politely pull open the car door, take the things from my hands, and the look in his eyes was full of admiration and gentleness. Everything he saw constantly reminded him that my world had not collapsed because of his departure. On the contrary, it had become broader and more vibrant. This realization completely shattered the last shred of masculine pride in her. Jealousy and unwillingness grew like poisonous vines in her heart, eventually driving him to the stupidest act. That afternoon, the sun was just right. I, as usual, walked in the neighborhood park with Anan, and Xie Jinxi happened to come over to discuss some follow-up matters after the exhibition and accompanied us. Anan could already walk and was wobbling as he chased a butterfly, letting out a giggling laugh. At that moment, a dark figure suddenly sprang out from the shrubs nearby, grabbing my wrist with a force so strong it seemed as if it would crush my bones. It is Lu Ziyi. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair disheveled, and the expensive suit he wore was covered in dust. He looked like a desperate gambler. Uncle Qin, he roared, and his other hand tried to seize Anan, who was beside me. He is my son, you cannot take him away from me. Anan cried loudly in fear at his ferocious appearance. My heart tightened, and I instinctively shielded Anan behind me, shouting sternly, Lu Ziyi, let go. What are you trying to do? I want to take my son home, he shouted in a flurry, trying to push me aside. Just as his hand was about to touch Anan, a long, strong hand calmly stretched over and stood between us. It is Xie Jinxi. He did not get angry, nor did he raise his voice. He merely grasped Lu Ziyi, who was gripping my wrist. His grip was not strong, yet like a pair of iron pliers, preventing Lu Ziyi from breaking free in the slightest. Xie Jinxi's voice was calm, yet carried an undeniable coercive force. Lu seemed like an angered bull, turning his head to roar at Xie Jinxi. This is our family matter. What are you? Just get lost. Xie Jinxi paid no attention to his roar, but signaled to the bodyguards not far behind him, softly instructing, call the police. On the grounds of public harassment and attempting to kidnap a minor, the bodyguard instantly nodded and pulled out his phone. Lu's arrogant swagger instantly diminished by half. He had not expected Xie Jinxi to choose to report to the police so decisively. Xie Jinxi's gaze then fell back onto Lu's, his eyes as cold as ice. Mr. Lu, there are two things I think you need to understand. First, you and Miss Qin no longer have any legal connection, so there is no such thing as family matters. Second, he paused, his gaze as sharp as a sword piercing Lu's path. Do you have Thito Bianan's father? It is not up to you. Not even up to Qinshu, but to your actions, and your past actions have already caused you to permanently lose this. Each of his words struck Lu's dignity like a hammer. This wasn't physical violence, but a dual blow of law and aura from a higher social class. He made all of Lu's spluttering and shouting seem like that of a pathetic clown. Luz completely collapsed. He let go of my hand, stumbled back, muttering to himself, "No, it wasn't like this." The police arrived quickly after seeing the evidence of Luz's earlier harassment presented by Xie Jingxi's lawyer. They did not hesitate to take the emotionally out-of-control Luz away. I crouched down, tightly holding the frightened Anen, gently patting her back. Xie Jingxi shed his own coat and draped it over my shoulders, softly saying, "Don't be afraid, I'll be there. He will never have the chance to hurt you again." I looked up at her resolute eyes, and the last trace of unease that had risen from Luz's agitation completely disappeared. Yes, I am not alone. My life now has a new, stronger guardian. Luz was taken away by the police and detained administratively for 15 days for harassment. This matter became the final straw that crushed Wen Yiru. He watched Luz gradually slide toward losing control and madness, watching his fixation on me, his ex-wife, grow deeper. He knew that if he didn't do something he would truly be kicked out of the game, so he chose to post a small shameless essay online in the most foolhardy and instantly gratifying way. He registered a small account presenting himself as a poor little guy who was deeply loved by Mr. Lu but suppressed by his ex-wife, and wrote a long tearful article in the piece. He portrays himself as the kind girl who stood by Luzi at his darkest moments, while I am the vicious ex-wife who, after his success, climbed high for vanity and reluctantly hints at Xie Jingxi to abandon his husband. He even ominously attached photos of Luz paying for him with luxury goods, attempting to prove Luz's love for him, and several photos of me with Xie Jingxi at events after my win, aiming to control public opinion and pin me on the shame of being a gold digger. It must be said that this short essay is quite incendiary, striking a chord with many online critics. For a moment, the uninformed spectators crowded under my newly opened studio official account, leaving AOF indecent comments. So this so-called genius designer is also a woman who hates being poor and loves wealth. Pity for the girl named Ruru. When a man has money he becomes bad. The original wife becomes even scarier when she goes bad. Abandon husband and children. Such a woman's jewelry design is even unlucky to wear. Facing this sudden, overwhelming online violence, I chose to stay silent. I know that any defense in front of furious keyboard warriors will only seem pale and powerless. However, my silence does not mean the people behind me will stay quiet. When Yiru underestimated Xie Jingxi's ability and even more underestimated his determination to protect me, just as his long post reached its peak and he thought he had the upper hand, Xie Jingxi's public relations team used only one piece of evidence to turn the entire public opinion landscape upside down, like the sky collapsing and the earth cracking. That was an audio file with a blunt, simple title, "A Choice at the Hospital Door." The beginning of the audio is noisy background sound, a clear and anxious shriek. The laboring woman is bleeding heavily, the heart dropping to 80, an immediate cesarean section required. Then comes Luz's gentle, nauseating voice, "Ruru, what happened? Don't cry, speak slowly." Then when Yiru's sweet voice with a crying tone, "RZE, I have appendicitis. The doctor says it must be signed by a relative. I'm so scared. Will you come with me?" Finally, the line that would go down in history for its extreme coldness, spoken from Luz's mouth, "Just endure a bit, I'll be back soon." This recording was quietly captured by a nurse present at the scene who couldn't bear it any longer and recorded it on her phone. In a fit of anger, Xie Jingxi's team somehow found this nurse and obtained her consent to publicly reveal this hellish piece of concrete evidence. Once the audio was released, the entire internet exploded. The impact of it was incomparable to any words. On one side, the wife was fighting for life and death and the child's life hung in the balance. On the other side, the lover's appendicitis and coquettishness. Luz's choice became clear and indisputable, laid bare for everyone. The public opinion instantly reversed. Just a moment ago, netizens who had been insulting me turned their guns around, directing them with a firepower 100 times more furious at Luzi and Wen Yiru. The topic of the dilemma at the maternity ward door shot to the top of the hot list within just an hour. Then a bright red bun followed. Am I dreaming? Is this man human? Appendicitis and massive postpartum hemorrhage. Beat this. This is murder. That mistress is so disgusting. She knew the wife was about to give birth and still called the Green Tea Fighter pilot. Heart aches for Qin to have lost. After walking through the gates of hell, the husband is the mistress while I'm left. I'm not only letting him become a father gladly, I'm making his whole family into martyrs. The people who insulted Uncle Chin should come out and apologize. This isn't climbing higher, this is removing harm for the people, a hero, Lu Ziyi. And when Yiru were subjected to the most indecent public shaming, nailed to the moral crucifix, all their information was dug up by angry netizens, company addresses, home addresses, phone numbers all exposed, and they welcomed the complete social death they deserved. And I did nothing at all. I sat in the sunny studio, watching the endless scrolling of comments on my behalf justicing me, and calmly turned off my phone. The wheel of karma turns. You see how heaven has never spared anyone. The earth-shattering scandal online became the first domino to topple Lu Ziyi's career. His company's performance had already been slipping due to his recent distraction, and this wave of public opinion delivered a fatal blow. The stock price plunged overnight, as if in free fall, and partners who once regarded him as a brother-in-arms began to withdraw their investments, drawing a clear line to avoid being tainted by his irredeemable stain. In just 1 month, the Lu's investment, which once dominated the finance circle in City A, declared bankruptcy and liquidation, the tree fallen, monkeys scattering, when Yiru, the woman who kept insisting that he couldn't live without him, took the last bit of money from her bank card at the first sign of trouble and vanished without a trace, just as he had suddenly appeared in her life, and leaving just as decisively when he left. The double blows of career and love, like two unmoved mountains, completely overwhelmed Lu Ziyi. The immense mental pressure fed back into his body in a late night no one cared about. He was rushed to the hospital due to severe stomach pains, diagnosed with acute gastric perforation. Ironically, it was his stomach, once carefully tuned by me for many years in Wenju, that betrayed him in the moment of his utter isolation in the harshest way. He lay in the hospital's most ordinary private double room, while the neighboring bed's family members came and went, making a ruckus, and the air was thick with a complex scent of laughing poison and cheap meals. This stark contrast for someone accustomed to the Wandi life was undoubtedly another form of slow execution. He was penniless, even the medical bills barely scraped together by his aging parents. He looked at his parents' aging, disappointed faces, and the last bit of dignity and pride in his heart was completely crushed. Under the dual torment of illness and despair, she finally exhausted all her dignity and did the most humble thing of his life. He entrusted a message through a former mutual friend of ours. When the friend came to see me, his expression was complicated, wanting to speak but stopping. I was watering a newly bought orchid, sunlight spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. A moment of serene time. Uncle Chin's friend spoke with difficulty. Lu Ziyi, he's been hospitalized, acute gastric perforation, not in good condition. My watering hand paused, then steadied again, and I gave a soft, indifferent hum. The friend saw that I had little reaction and had no choice but to steel himself and continue. He wants to see you once. If you won't see him, he begs you to at least send him a bowl of porridge. The friend guardedly explained to me that he knows he was wrong, disastrously wrong. He's not asking for your forgiveness, he just wants to drink the porridge you cooked for him one more time. He says as long as you are still willing to cook him a bowl of porridge, it proves there's still a trace of concern for him in your heart, which is his only wish right now, a bowl of porridge. I put down the kettle, and not a single ripple stirred in my heart. I only felt it was ridiculous. When he was at his peak, I brewed him porridge for 5 years, which he took for granted, sometimes even complaining that the taste was bland. Now, when he has nothing, this bowl of porridge he once dismissed has become the last lifeline he uses to probe my feelings and to save his pitiful spiritual world. How ludicrous. I looked at my friend's face full of awkwardness and sympathy, and I remained silent for a long time. My friend thought my silence was hesitation, that I was struggling. He even began to persuade me, Uncle Chin, I know he owes you, but after all they were husband and wife, and he is indeed miserable now. Maybe you should feel sorry for him and go see him. I raised my head to look at her, then slowly shook my head. I did not go to the hospital that afternoon. I accompanied Anan in the studio's self-made little garden, stacking blocks as usual. The sun was warm, shining lazily on my skin, and a quiet, tinkling laugh sounded like silver bells. My life was calm and fulfilling, and happiness. Luoza and the world he represented, a world full of betrayal and pain, felt as distant as something from a past life. In the evening, I received a call from a friend who asked me carefully how I was weighing my decision. Holding Anne, who was playfully snuggling in my arms, I walked to the window, gazed at the brilliant sunset, and spoke to him in an unprecedentedly calm voice. Please do me a favor and pass along one sentence. My Jew is reserved for someone worthy. As for him, hospital meals are more suitable for him. After I said it, I hung up. I did not utter any harsh words, did not express any hatred, and not a trace of emotion flickered, because in the face of his name, my heart would no longer stir. Later I heard from that friend that Lu Ziyi, after hearing my reply on the hospital bed, was stunned for a long while. Then this man who had roared across the mall and never known weakness, cried out in despair on the bed like a child. He might have truly understood at that moment that for someone whose heart had died, the cruelest revenge is not a vicious curse or gleeful mockery but a total, heartfelt disregard. That feeling is like shouting at an abyss with all your might, hoping for even the faintest echo to prove you once existed. While the abyss not only refuses to echo but won't even bother to hate you, at least it would show that it cares, and I have not only deprived him of the right to possess me, but forever and utterly deprived him of the qualification to judge me. This is the most extreme silent judgment I could give him. A year later, on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, my personal jewelry brand Annie's first overseas flagship store grandly opened here. This was possible thanks to a strategic partnership between my brand and a luxury group under the Xiejingxi family, which provided the top-tier channels and resources, while I, with my unique designs, injected a new oriental soul into this ancient luxury empire. On the night of the opening, celebrities gathered and stars shone. I wore a black velvet gown adorned with delicate diamonds designed by myself, standing in the spotlight as the chief designer. Articulating my brand philosophy in English to media and guests from all over the world, Annie is the soul. I believe every gem has a sleeping soul, and the designer's mission is to awaken it with love and craftsmanship. Let it tell its story, and illuminate the wearer. My voice echoed clearly through the gilded hall via the microphone. Watching the focused and appreciative eyes below, I felt an unprecedented sense of resolve and strength. At that moment I was no longer anyone's wife or mother. I was simply a violin and book, a designer crowned by her works. After the speech, per procedure, the partner representative Xiejingxi took the stage. He wore a well-cut deep blue suit, graceful and poised, drawing all eyes the moment he entered. He first expressed congratulations on the collaboration and looked to the future in a formal manner. Then his tone shifted, his gaze crossing the crowd and settling gently and intently on me. Today, in addition to celebrating Annie's voyage, I have one small, very personal message I want to announce here. The room fell silent at once, everyone watching him with curiosity. He produced a velvet box from his suit pocket, and opened it to reveal a single ring resting quietly inside, a design I had never seen before. The main stone was a rare color-changing sapphire, which under the lights would appear deep blue at times and mysterious purple at others, like a capricious starlit sky. The setting was woven from countless tiny diamonds into the shape of a galaxy. Cradling that starry sky, I named this ring Universe. His voice, through the microphone, carried a trace of barely perceptible nervousness. His design had cost me a year of my spare time. The room exploded in astonishment. No one expected this titan of investment would personally design a ring. He walked toward me with the ring, and under the gaze and lenses of every camera, he slowly lowered himself to one knee. Uncle Chin, he looked up, and in his eyes was the most sincere starlight in the world. Everyone marveled at the stars created by your fingertips, and I only wish to be the universe that guards this starry sky for you. Annie is your soul, and you are my soul. Will you marry me? My tears burst forth at this moment. This time it is not because of pain or grievance, but because of happiness. I look at the careful, sincere respect and love in his eyes, at the unique universe he designed for me, and I know I have finally found someone who can understand my soul and is willing to guard it with everything he has. I smile and shed tears as I reach out my hand to him. I do. The whole hall erupts in thunderous applause and blessings. Xiejingxi places that universe on my ring finger, fit just right. He stands up and holds me tightly in his arms. In front of all these witnesses, my life opens a most brilliant page. 3 years later, on a sunny weekend in City A in Central Park on the outskirts, on a large green lawn spread with a beautiful checkered picnic mat, Shehingsi and I are here picnicking with an who is lively and active at 4. Mom, look, a butterfly. Anan wears a small pair of denim overalls and dashes across the grass like a little shell, chasing a colorful monarch butterfly. Laughing, I sit on the mat, watching his tireless little figure run, my face soft with a gentle smile. Xiejinsi stands nearby, patiently cutting fruit and handing the largest, sweetest strawberry to my mouth. Here, you eat too. I smile and take a bite, then feed the remaining half to her. These 3 years of married life have been calm and happy. Xiejinsi has given me 100% respect and freedom. He supports me in continuing to develop my career. With his help, I have become an internationally renowned haute jewelry brand. He also treats Anan as his own, taking time every day no matter how busy to play games with Anan and tell stories. Anan really likes him and calls him Uncle Jinxie, a warmth that comes from the heart. At this moment, Anan, who was chasing the butterfly, tripped on a small stone at his feet, losing balance and falling onto the grass. Wow! An's cries rang out instantly. Almost at the same moment he fell, Xiejinsi, faster than a released arrow, rushed over. He picked Anan up in one go, nervously checking his arms and knees. Anan didn't cry, showing the uncle where he fell. His voice was full of tenderness and self-reproach, as if it were his fault. Anan lay on Xiejinsi's broad shoulders, sniffing as she pointed to her knee where the skin had reddened from being rubbed. Xiejinsi immediately took out antiseptic swabs and a band-aid from his pocket first aid kit, carefully tending to the wound. While treating it, he blew gently on the wound, a little breath that could ease the pain. Anan looked at Xiejinsi's face full of tension and concern, and suddenly stopped crying. She stretched out her small arms and hugged Xiejinsi's neck, burying her little face in the hollow of his neck, and softly called him Dad in a remarkably clear voice with a hint of dependency. Xiejinsi's body stiffened at once. He slowly lowered the things in his hands and looked at the little one in his arms with disbelief. Anan called again, a little louder this time, Dad. I saw Xiejinsi's eyes welling up at that moment. He said nothing, but held Anan tightly, as if embracing the most precious treasure in the world. I sat a short distance away, my own eyes a little damp. I knew that from this moment on we would be a truly complete and happy family in the real sense. All the past scars had finally been healed entirely by love and time. I picked up my phone, wanting to record this warm moment. As my finger glided across the screen, a social news push suddenly popped up, its title short but striking in front of my eyes. A financial prodigy, Lu Ziyi, was released and photographed handing out flyers on the street, looking dispirited. The accompanying photo showed a man I could barely recognize, dressed in cheap work clothes with grey hair, a stooped figure, numb as he handed out flyers to passerby. I took a single glance and calmly swiped away the push. Then I looked up, aimed the camera at the 2 most important men in my life, one large and one small, standing not too far away under the sunlight. Their smiling faces were the most beautiful scenery I had ever seen. I pressed the shutter and froze this moment into eternity.